from Ayin, which is the line that begins with Korisluhu, about 10 lines from the beginning of that of this paragraph. I want to make just a comment. A misleading implication. Because pleasure, first of all, it's used in all kinds of contexts, but moreover, it's simply incorrect because pleasure denotes an active state. You do something and you get pleasure out of it. You eat tasty food and you have pleasure. We are talking about delight of the nefesh, which is an internal and an inherent element. And the reason that there is that delight is because of the very fact of its being alive and drawing its life from the infinite. This is a completely different type of a quality. This is why when we talk about oineg, we speak about oineg hanelam, oineg ho'atzmi. And we explain in general that the presence of this oineg is due to the fact that this atzim has an inherent reality. In contrast to anything in the world that needs an arouser, so to speak. It does not have its own sense of reality. What is it here for? What is its life? Nothing. And something has to give it a push. Oineg HaNefesh means because it's an atzma, that's why he has, and this is where the oineg. Oineg means the recognition of the truth of its own truth and the truth that flows through it. Reminiscent of the classic question that we discussed many times, what would be if the world were to come to naught, to total elimination in one instant, without anything in the world suffering, being unaware that it's losing its presence? Would that constitute some kind of a tragedy? Or would we say that nothing happened, there was no suffering, nothing happened? And within the world mentality, that question is very difficult to answer. As a matter of fact, from the world mentality, the answer would be that in fact nothing happened. The whole mentality is that what is the world run on? On competition, on self-preservation against intruders. There has to be something that arouses the interest in one's own life. Otherwise, there's nothing there. There has to be a challenge. This is the superficial view of the world. If world were to be interpreted and understood from purely external worldly perspective, World means cause and effect, interaction. If we were to discount the inherent life element in the world, then that would be the answer. So therefore, Oyneg and Tainug in Chassidus means something totally different. All right, so here's where we start. The line begins with the word Poris Lahu.
What did you say in the very end? Oyneg and Tainug? I didn't hear.
I said right in the beginning, I don't like the word pleasure. Oyneg and Tainug in Chassidus means something different.
Okay, all right.
All right, so we go down, and the Gemara says that David HaMelech described his relationship, his appreciation of Torah and mitzvahs as zmiros, as songs, and the Gemara says that Nemesh, that he was punished for having referred to Torah as zmiros. And in the inference in the fact that he was punished is that this was missing the target. It's not really referring to the Torah in its true level. And our question is, what is in fact missing? Why is this zmira is not a valid and a complementary way of referring to Torah? However, the Ayin is, as we explained previously, in previous mind, Torah is the intermediary to bind Neshamas Yisrael with Ein Sof. And similarly, the Torah is also the intermediary bein Oir Ein Sof le'elamis, between the Oir Ein Sof and world. The principle of Ein Sof, from Yisrael and Ein Sof, and Oir Ein Sof le'elamis, it has to be clearly recognized that everything has to have an element from the Ein Sof. Otherwise it could not exist. So how does Ein Sof or Ein Sof reach into a lower level? So there is the Neshamas Yisrael and there is oiliness. Torah is the means by which this connection is made. For further elaboration, which means that in order to facilitate and bring about that it should be Giluyim, expressions from Asmas Ein Sof in world. I'll explain in a moment. Zehu alidei amtzos hatoim. That possibility of Giluyim from Asmas Ein Sof in world, this is alidei amtzos hatoim. This is as a result and through the effect of the amtzoros of the intermediacy of Torah. Torah connects the Asmas Ein Sof with world and brings about the Giluyim from Asmas Ein Sof into worlds. We already discussed many times the principle of Giluyim. Giluyim means revelations. What that entails is, for example, in the case of a home. So we have understood, recognized that the home is an overall reality in the human being. It encompasses the entire reality of the human being. But the Gemara says, "Mi she'ein le Beis, ein le odom." Therefore, the Beis is a representative of the reality of the human being per se, not his comfort and his activity, but to say the real person. And then, when one does have a home, the home does not stay barren, and he furnishes the home with everything that goes into it. These furnishings it has to be understood that these furnishings are actually representations of the essential principle of the home. Although it would appear to be that these furnishings are simply practical requirements that a person needs for practical activity. So they are all very functional and nothing to do with the principle of his having a home, of his being a human being. So we pointed out that that is not the case. That a table in the home and a table in the restaurant, they represent two very different aspects for the human being. A table in the home has the home spirit. It has the sense of this reality that this is a table in the home. Not merely the superficial aspect of it, the momentary aspect of it, that it has a function, but there is a permanence and a true principle. A dining room table, standing in a dining room, does not represent the fact that this is a place where I'm going to eat and have fun. It represents that this is a dining room, which is part of the home. This is called Giluyim. And this is called Giluyim in this terminology, Giluyim me'er ein sof. This is called Giluyim from the very essence of the environment. These are not two separate entities, elements. If we look at it from an external, from a worldly perspective, we lose sight that the human being is a real presence in the world, a godly presence. That a home is merely something that gives him some privacy and protects him against the elements. And a table is something that gives him comfort to do his activities. And from that perspective, there would be no difference whether he lives in a hotel or in his own home. He eats in restaurants or he eats in his own home, dining room. But we are explaining that this is not the case. There is a fundamental difference. That fundamental difference is really not a worldly principle. It exists in the world, but it's not a worldly principle. World means cause and effect. There is no cause and effect in this. There is an essential element in this. It represents the principle that he is a godly creation. with a fundamental presence in the world. This is what it represents, not his activity in the world, but the actual fundamental presence that the Eibishter has put into him. This is what this represents. And all the things that go into his activity, into his functional element, are revelations from that principle, from that overall godly reality that was invested in the human being. So, in this case, continuing with our motion, what brings about the revelations from the essential sense of the significance of the home into the practical development of the home? So that one would be able to say, oh, I see the chair, the table, oh, that's related to this essential reality. Where is the link? The practical element, as you sit on the chair maybe and eat on the table, these do not relate to the essence. These are functional uses. Where is the link between the essence and this function? This is in the Chokhmah. This is in the Chokhmah, because the human being has an element of Chokhmah. And in his Chokhmah, he senses what he is. He senses what the inyan of a home is. And Chokhmah makes the link also into the further down to the other aspects of human life. And this is the link. This is where, when he sits, this is what has the effect, what creates that link, and that sense that when he sits at his own table, he sees it as a different type of experience than sitting in the restaurant. The essence of his nefesh would not relate to it, would not sense it. In his seichel, in his chokhmah, he senses it. So similarly, there's the Ein Sof, which is the Ein Sof, Atmos and Sof, the truth of Elokus. And then there is Oilamus. Everything that exists, there's absolutely no way that anything can be but for some kind of a draw from Amitis Imotza. What makes this link, this connection? This is in Torah. Okay, this is what we explore.
Well, how does Chokhmah make that link between the essential thing and the functional?
The link consists of the fact that it says there are two things here. There is the essential human being, And the human being is in the world. Being in the world, there has to be some kind of a worldly means by which he is in the world. He is in the world. And the world cannot recognize his presence, then he's not in the world. Where do you recognize the presence of the human being in the world? It is through his activities in the world. Chochmah, I've been explained many times that the meaning of Chochmah is this phenomenal union. That on the one hand, it is observing. On the other hand, its observation is not from an external, from its own interpretation. Its observation is observing the reality itself, while it is observing, which means it is seeing it from a worldly perspective. And this is why Chochmah allows this essential thing to be translated in practical world aspect, ultimately, which is done afterwards through Bina, but Chochmah is the one that makes that link. Because if it were exclusively from below the Chochmah, being or not affected by Chochmah, then you could easily dismiss the essential truth. It is Chochmah that does not allow you to dismiss the essential truth.
Chochmah sees the essential truth, but from the world. Sees it from the world, it sees...
Right, because it sees it, it's automatically from the world. Not by worldly approach, but from an external perspective. It stands.
Are we going to be saying that, so really there's no Chochmah without Torah? We just saw now in this mashal of the house and the table the connection between Ein Sof and the specific. But now we're going on to say Torah is that mamutza.
Within Chochmah itself, there is the Etzem HaChochmah and there's that which is Nimshach from the Chochmah. This is the Gilui HaChochmah. Torah in Etzem HaChochmah nafkos. Torah comes forth from Chochmah. There is a Chochmah the way it is within the hidden reality itself, the Chochmah Atzmis, but Amelam, it does not make that itself does not make the connection. It is the Gilui of Chochmah. For example, every human being, every nefesh, has a nefesh, has all the koiches, oiling and rotzen, and this Chochmah and Bina doesn't. How many human beings can you possibly find a human being who does not employ his Chochmah? Would that be an anomaly? He does not have derech eretz, he doesn't know how to behave like a human being?
I've seen one of those before.
There is such a thing. His Chochmah is inherently there, but it's not drawn out. It's not
made manifest.
It's not made manifest. Right.
So what's the point?
Yes, about the Torah is a manifestation. It's drawn from the Chochmah Atzmos. Torah is Chochmah Nafkos. It comes forth. This is the expression of Chochmah.
I'm not sure if I'm catching what. So when we went from the table in the house, it seemed like that was a complete situation. The bridge was made between Ein Sof and this practical function, and that was
Wait a second. Between the nefesh, this is not. Let's
Yeah,
not
what's-
mix with.
right. So how?
Something much.
That's right. Between the nefesh and the practical living. Yeah.
Right. So in that mashal, there seemed to be that connection achieved by chokhmah.
Right.
So again, I'm kind of, what is Torah coming to? Where is Torah in that mashal, or what is Torah coming
No,
to?
no, no. Yeah, that
add?
muscle. This is the human element.
Yeah.
We're talking about bringing a lakus, godliness.
Uh-huh. It seems like, okay, so that human element is not yet a godly element, even though it's quite essential.
It is
So-
very essential.
And beyond worldly, not yet godly.
Well, beyond worldly in an extremely relative sense. It exists if one would focus into it, would understand that it exists only because the human being is a godly creation. But you don't see godliness in this. On the contrary, it can easily, and it is easily interpreted as human haughtiness, human gaiva. Right? Yeah, let's not lie. It's important that we understand what we're saying. If we truly understand, we won't be confusing the nefesh with godliness. We really relate to what we're saying, not just following, slogans. This is a human nefesh, and this inyan that we say that we see in it a human quality that is not worldly, this is a very special fine insight. And I said before, how many people can you meet in the world who do not have that insight? Have you ever seen anyone? Surprise, surprise. Eichel b'shuk ein hayodam, said Nimar. Eichel is eichel to kelev. Have you ever seen anyone, human being, eating in the shul? No kidding. Shock. All right. Just wanted to explain the principle of Giluyim Yasmuf. Giluyim. So Giluyim, this is an example, a proper example in association between Giluyim. Torah is the intermediary which brings about that there should be Giluyim for Masmas Ein Sof in world. Mahainu. And that is, meaning to say, how is this accomplished by Torah? May tainug ho'atzmi hamlubash b'Torah, because of the tainug atzmi that is malubash, that is contained in Torah. What is this about? If Torah did not have tainug atzmi, then it would not link to Ein Sof. This link means that it has it can be, it has connections on top and the bottom. The Tanakh Atzmi, this is what links it to the top. Tanakh Atzmi hamrubish b'teira, k'moi shehi b'bchinas chochma hagdum. As Torah is in its original state, its an original root, which is b'chinas chochma hagdum, in the b'china of chochma hagdum, and this is where Torah is initially found, present, and originates. The chochma hagduma. Within there is a Tanakh Atzmi, because chochma is privy to time, as we've discussed many times. And chochma hagduma, this we discussed quite extensively the other day. Chochma hagduma is privy to Tanakh Atzmi. Because I'm just reviewing it. I'm sure that you heard it over and over. Because chokhmah means that you is something which is discovered. Something which is discovered has no access to the answer. Something that you find out by stumbling upon it, by finding it, by identifying it. You're not the etzem. It's its appearance, not the etzem. This we say, but that there is a union of chokhmah. It's called chokhmah hagduma. Chokhmah hagduma means that it is as original, as essential as the oineg itself. So that you know the oineg not by discovering it, but from an essential, from inside out. And there is where Torah is, the Chochmah Gduma. And this is why that's why in Torah, in the Chochmah Gduma, there is the Ayin Gatzim. Only from an internal perspective can you know anything that is in the Etzem. Have an actual sight, an actual understanding of the Oineg itself.
Sorry, I just missed that the last piece. You said only through Chokhmah you can have this.
Chokhmah Hagduma.
Uh-huh. It's on the inside.
Because it's it's a knowledge that is from inside. All right, this is it for this morning. Have a good day.
There's not an easy phrase on this page.
Yeah.